Amigos, let's continue our journey with salsa and see how this style developed in New York and how it got its name and who some of the stars were. So you remember Fania, right? It created a Latin sound on the one record label, Salsa. But some of the musicians were never comfortable with the label. That was the case of Tito Puente, who argued that salsa was nothing new, that it was actually son, the Cuban rhythm that, as we've seen, gave origin to bolero. For Tito Puente, salsa was sauce, what you put on your food to give it flavor. And in fact, the word salsa was used for the first time in a Cuban song called Échale salsita, put a little sauce in it, written in 1930 by Ignacio Piñeiro, mixing both food and rhythm, in other words, appealing to the idea of flavor in both culinary and musical terms. But why salsa? Well, salsa or sauce mixes strong ingredients to produce something unique. That's the idea behind salsa music, a fusion of several rhythms. The song Échale salsita talks about a party night in town that needs a bit of salsa, otherwise it'll have no flavor. Most people are familiar with Buena Vista Social Club. What they do is bolero and mainly song. Song has a slow 3/2 tempo and its lyrics tend to talk about everyday stories in the neighborhood, gossip, and love stories that are told in a funny and even innocent way. In fact, the lyrics can be explicit, but this combination of humor and innocence makes them seem harmless. Salsa, as we'll see later, took this to the extreme. A typical salsa song has three main sections: percussion, keyboard, and a wind section. There are salsa musicians who are recognized by a specific instrument. Tito Puente and his timbales, Eddie Palmieri and his piano, Willie Colon and his trombone. Its 4/4 tempo is faster than that of the musical style song. And the dance is also faster. In fact, dancing is perhaps the most identifiable feature of salsa, or, should I clarify, of certain kind of salsa. In New York, the Caribbean foundation of salsa absorbed many influences, from jazz to later on disco. It's true. You listen to the intro of Ruben Blades' masterpiece Plástico and have the feeling that it's a song out of Saturday Night Fever. But then, the song switches gears. This is something that Blades does very well. His wonderful song, Pedro Navaja, ends with a line from West Side Story, "I like to live in America." The statement is ironic because the song has just described a crime in the Bronx. In other words, like sauce itself, salsa music has been absorbing influences from its inception, and it hasn't stopped. We'll see this when we listen to Rómulo Castro, a musician who goes from the Caribbean to the Mediterranean and North Africa in search of rhythms. Sometimes all of them get together in one song. But before going on that journey, let's see how salsa got out of the dance floor and it began to tackle social issues. Fania wanted a product that was exotic, danceable, and bankable. And the formula worked. Latin music became easily recognizable because of its sound. In a way, it became predictable and trapped under one label, like the handsome, funny, and quirky TV actors from the 50s. The lyrics were also predictable. Love songs, most of them half-baked, which put music first. The dance floor wasn't a place to think or tackle big issues. But some musicians did. Celia Cruz, most of whose music is about the joy of living life as a carnival, also sung a few songs that dealt with Latin identity in the US and mainly with machismo and gender discrimination. But these songs are the exception in her repertoire. who tackled the social side of salsa head-on was Ruben Blades, and he still does. He says that his songs are not political but urban chronicles, crónicas urbanas, that have dealt with cultural identity, racial discrimination, crime, and mainly political oppression in Latin America. His first album, Siembra, from 1978, which he co-authored with Willie Colon, was produced by Fania, but put him at odds with Masucci because his music didn't conform with the norm. He went solo and hasn't had that many salsa musicians who follow in his footsteps, because what still prevails is mainstream commercial salsa, the one that sells. Like Bolero, salsa follows a reactionary path, not interested in challenging the status quo. We'll come back to this when we listen to Rómulo Castro's music. So, amigos, what can I say? Get ready to step out of the dance floor.